All right, let's talk about something in JavaScript that trips up, well, pretty much everyone at some point. It's this idea that when you use const, your objects are set in stone. But is that really true? We're going to get to the bottom of it and show you the right tool for the job. Okay, let's dive in. So first up, we have to talk about what I call the const deception. You see that word const, and your brain immediately thinks constant. You assume if you declare an object with it, that thing is locked down, totally safe from changes. And hey, that makes perfect sense. But it's not actually how it works. So let's just get right to the point. You go ahead and declare an object with const. Let's say it's a user object for someone named Alex. Is that object really, truly constant? Like, could you change that user's name later on? What do you think? And the answer is, yep, you totally can. See, even though the object was declared with const, you can still reach right in and change its properties. You can switch the name from Alex to Ben, no problem, and JavaScript just lets it happen. This right here, this is the core of the whole misunderstanding. Okay, so here's the deal. This is the part you really gotta get. Const doesn't protect what's inside the object. It protects the variable's assignment. It basically puts a lock on the user variable and says, hey, you are always going to point to this specific object. You can't make user point to a brand new object, but you can definitely mess with the properties of the object it's already pointing to. So remember this, const protects the variable, not the value inside. So if const isn't the hero we need to make our objects unchangeable, then what is? Well, this brings us to the real solution, a built-in JavaScript method called Object.freezing. To put it simply, Object.freeze does what most of us thought const did all along. It takes an object and basically makes all of its direct properties read-only. This is the tool you grab when you absolutely need to make sure an object's data doesn't get changed. And, when an object is frozen, it is really frozen. It's totally locked down. You can't add anything new, you can't take anything away, you can't change the values of what's already there, and you can't even mess with its prototype. It is a complete lockdown. Let's watch this happen. So imagine we have this user configuration object. Right now, it's like a control panel where you can flip all the switches and turn all the knobs. It's totally changeable. And here's where the magic happens. We just wrap it in Object.freeze. And that's it. From this moment on, that user config object is, for all intents and purposes, encased in a block of ice. So now, look what happens when we try to mess with it. We try to change the theme to light, we try to add a totally new key, and nothing. The attempts just fail silently. When we check the object again, it's exactly the same as it was before. It's like our changes never even happened. It's worth pointing out, though, that if you're using JavaScript strict mode, this would actually throw an error, which is awesome for catching bugs early. But just when you think you found the perfect tool, there's a twist. Object.freeze has one really important limitation that you absolutely need to know about. Let's just call it the shallow gotcha. Seriously, if you remember one thing about this method, let it be this. Object.freeze is shallow. What that means is it only freezes the properties at the very top level of an object. It doesn't dig down into any nested objects. So let's break that down. Imagine your object is like an ice block. The outer shell, frozen solid. But if one of the properties inside is another object, that inner object is still totally changeable. It's still warm, you could say. So if you want to make the entire thing unchangeable, you have to do what's called a deep freeze, where you write a function that goes through every single level and freezes any objects it finds along the way. Okay, so this is all cool technical stuff, but why does this actually matter in your day-to-day coding? Why should you really care about freezing objects? Honestly, the benefits are huge. If you're working with frameworks like React or Redux, keeping your state from changing unexpectedly is everything. Freezing state objects helps prevent those maddening ghost bugs where data changes and you have no idea why. On top of that, some JavaScript engines can actually make frozen objects run faster. But maybe most importantly, it's a crystal clear signal to other developers on your team that says, hey, this data is not meant to change. Do not touch. It's just great communication. All right, let's wrap this all up and get to the final takeaway for you, the developer. We've seen what const is for, what Object.freeze is for, and why it all matters. This table pretty much says it all. Const is all about the variable level. It stops you from reassigning the variable. Object.freeze, on the other hand, works on the value level. It stops you from changing the properties inside the object. They solve two different problems. So what's the best practice? Use them together.
When you declare a truly constant object, do it like this. Const frozen object equals object.freeze, parentheses open. That way, you get the best of both worlds. No reassignment and no changes to the object itself.
And that brings us to the end. So I'll leave you with this question. Now that you know the real difference, think about your own projects. Where is there a config object, or a piece of state, or some other data that should absolutely never change? Where could you add one simple line of code today and maybe save yourself from a nightmare debugging session down the road?